Hi, hello everyone. Welcome you all to today's webinar on this topic, a very important topic of ego awareness and balance. Hope you are all safe and sound. At a situation when almost every signal, every message that you get from outside world is disturbing you, putting question mark on the uncertainty going forward. It is a time to look within. It is a time to look within, to organize ourselves, to equip us with the light of awareness, self awareness, and use this opportunity to evolve into a new being, new realization, new self. My name is Manas Das, and I'll be your moderator in this particular webinar today. I, along with my team here in ValuEndow, welcome you in this interesting topic. ValuEndow Consulting, inspired by the idea of looking at organizations as living beings. We know what difficult times, overcome challenges, environmental challenges, aspire to grow and excel. These are the basic tenets around which ValuEndow is committed to be your companion. We always keep your culture, context, and values in mind. Our core principle in ValuEndow is to improve the system performance and increase value. We provide integrated, practical, unique, best fit and custom built solutions. Our experts are from a variety of backgrounds, but everyone shares the common set of values and principles, the same code of conduct. And our vision is to partner with you, partnering change with people, process, systems, and strategy. Our range of services include multiple dimensions. It includes management consulting, leadership development, systems audit, and workplace well-being. To know more about our services and avail, please visit our website, valueendow.com. We also have some of the webinars lined up coming in the pipeline. These are on mental health and well-being by Pallavi Shivastav, gratitude therapy, key to well-being by Dr. Dimpy Mahanta, work from home etiquettes, managing virtual teams by Piyush Mahajan. I'll also be there on topics like personal mastery and leading organizational change. I'm very happy and excited to hosting this session today, and pleased to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Anjana Sen, knowledge partner with us. Dr. Anjana Sen is an internationally recognized professional consultant and coach for emotional intelligence and neuroleadership. She is the author of many books, articles, and provides life coach services. Alumnus of Lady Hardinge Medical College, Dr. Anjana worked with ONGC for almost 2 decades. Her first book, Get the Ego Advantage, was published in 2006 in the self-help genre. An illustrated screenplay, Adventure Ahead, the inside story, was published in 2018. The latest book is titled What's Your Superpower? Ultra Special Senses and You. This was published in 2019. This is about developing perceptive powers of the human intelligence for boosting resilience and nurturing leadership abilities from a very young age. Dr. Anjana is one of the founder members of the Forum for Emotional Intelligence Learning, FEIL. He designs and facilitates workshops on ego awareness and balance, stress management, relationship management, and neuroleadership. She has served many corporate clients, speaks regularly at medical and management colleges, and presents at conferences in India and abroad. We are happy and enthused to have Dr. Sen with us today, sharing her excellent work on this platform. Now, before I hand over the mic to Dr. Anjana, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about this session today and ValuEndow webinar platform. First, today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session, and you will be sent the link after the session. We also added some offers about our counseling services, which you can avail. We'll come to that at a later part of the day. Would love to hear from you during today's presentation. Though the speak button will not be available today, but to manage the webinar well, if you have any question for our speaker, please feel free to type in the chat box on the right side. If you see on the right side of your player, we'll be saving 15 minutes at the end of the presentation for Q&A session. If you don't get answer to your question during today's webinar, we'll surely follow up afterwards. We'll also have some poll questions in between coming up. These poll questions will appear just above your chat box, and we would like to encourage you to share today's webinar with your social network on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. So without any further ado, I would like to kick off things by welcoming our knowledge partner, Dr. Anjana Sen. Dr. Anjana Sen, over to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your time, thank you for your interest, and Manas, thanks for the introduction and the support. ValuEndow and Webinar Jam, we are coming together to make this happen today. Thanks for the technology, and we're going to today address the elephant in the room. I'm wondering, when did you encounter this elephant? Did you encounter the elephant at home, or was it at work, or perhaps while sitting and hanging out with friends? So whenever it was, I'm sure that you experienced one thing, that you cannot touch ego, but you can feel it in the room. You can feel it everywhere. So keeping that thought that you can feel ego, but you cannot see or touch it, let us try to look this elephant straight in the eye, and perhaps stay with me, then we can continue into understanding what it is and how to deal with it. So let us try to devise a strategy about dealing with it. So we're coming first to ask Manas to help with the poll question number 1.
Sure.
Is ego good or bad? Now, is it an asset or is it a liability? So can you hit your poll question button, answer button?
Yes, we have put that poll question on, and it's almost like 50-50 that we see 50% of the respondents, rather 54-45, and it's actually fluctuating right now because people are responding to it
It's very interesting.
On a real-time basis, and majority of the people I see that they're saying that 62% now saying ego is actually bad, and 36% saying ego is good. So to summarize that, we have a percentage poll of 34% saying good, and 65% saying bad.
Now, isn't that interesting? That is, this is really far out. Wonderful participation here. And, that's exactly how I expected to find it, either 50-50 or more people saying that it's bad. So that's really something to start on. And so, Manas has made this diagram about how it could be an asset and it could be a liability. So it can be used to drive, to fulfill, to or it could be, blocking and spoiling relationships. So coming back to that feel, you can feel somebody else's ego, but can you feel your own? That is another question, but then we are not pulling the answer here. The perception of my power and my significance, whatever perception I have of my power and my significance, that makes my ego as a thing. The perception is the thing. And interestingly, you know, we were probably born with the sense of self. And as soon as the sense of self comes into being, there is a sense of how powerful I am. And as a newborn baby, uh, a, a baby is born with rudimentary emotional intelligence. It knows what it likes and what it doesn't like. So, it can it can actually feel its own importance. So, depending on the way it is treated, it can actually feel that it is everything and is the center of the universe. So ego dwells in the subconscious because when it's there from the newborn stage, we know that there are plenty of other intelligences which are yet to develop. So as we grow and as we develop, the understanding about my abilities, my potential, my power to influence, my position, my status in the community, when we feel that and when we bring it up to the conscious thought, then it is called self-esteem, or probably a better word would be self-worth. But it's so exciting to know that when this understanding about my powers and my status is under threat, if that construct is somehow challenged, then it feels as much like a danger to me, to myself, to my physical presence. Now, why does this feel like that? So, to understand that, we come to the neurology and the evolution behind the neurology. You see, we are herd animals. We cannot survive in the wild alone. And the moment we depend on the tribe to keep us safe. And the moment our tribe or our community mm, disapproves of us or rejects us, we feel very distressed because if I am thrown out of the tribe, I am in danger. So that's how it is that rejection is equal to potential banishment. So the stress starts right there. And actually, when if in case you're banished, it is like it feels as bad as a death sentence. Now we come to the experiments which have been conducted in the neurology lab on this. And first of all, we tried to find out where is physical pain sensed in the brain. And you see the lower half of the uh, picture here. There is a orange spot which is showing the areas of the brain which have lighted up during a functional MRI when somebody is being delivered a painful stimulus to the body. And the same experiment is conducted with the stimulus being a social stimulus, like reading a rejection letter or hearing a news which is embarrassing or making that person feel ashamed. So that stimulus is actually processed somewhere in the brain. And what's interesting is that when we compare the two, we find that they are overlapping areas. So whatever system we had evolutionary times for the processing of pain in herd animals is upgraded to also process simultaneously the sensation of threat to social status. So now this is what it means. It means that threat to body, a certain panic button in the brain is punched. And threat to perception of power and importance It's the very same button which is punched. So if the same button is punched, then the resultant reaction in the body is absolutely identical. So thinking about ego as the outer boundary of power which I perceive I have. And how did this develop? It developed through the interplay of the feel good of importance and the feel bad of insignificance. So this concept of ego as a invisible outer boundary of the personality is how I have dealt with in the topic of in the book called Get the Ego Advantage. And then we can, imagine that my ego is either too big or too small or correct fit. So in this cartoon, this is actually from the book. There is a figure in the center which says labeled real. So suppose this is the size of the actual powers of this person, and the bubble outside is a perceived personal power. So you can see that there's a huge gap between the perceived and the real. So it's the perceived is actually delusional. And what are the factors which create this feeling of power? Well, they are listed on the screen. For example, wealth. Wealth makes me feel powerful. My fitness level makes me feel powerful. Knowledge, qualifications, lots of uh, letters behind my name, that makes me feel powerful. I have a certain social and professional status, maybe, birth order in the family or designation in the organization. Then we have the network of friends and family. You know, we often hear people showing off saying, आपको नहीं पता कि मैं किसके साथ उठता बैठता हूँ. That that is something that gives me a big boost. And then if I have a family which is supportive, that makes me feel powerful. Am I a person who has learned to regulate my emotions? That too makes me feel dependable and strong. How many skills have I picked up? Mastery over certain skills. And last but not the least, how good looking and how attractive I feel perceive myself to be. So an outsized ego, you see like this in this picture, there is this huge bubble this man has got, which is his ego boundary. And he's not upset about it. He's quite happy, he's smiling. But the other people are getting irritated. Now, that is exactly what happens to all of us. If we see somebody who's delusional about his importance, we are very interested in helping him to correct that delusion. So, whenever we see somebody with a bloated ego, we want to go and puncture that bubble. And what happens when the bubble is punctured? That feels really bad. Now, why does it feel bad? Because the pain response is the same as if somebody punched you in the face. So there's a huge gush of adrenaline, noradrenaline, anger, fear, or stress, and all that is translated in the body as accelerated heart rate, high blood pressure, blood sugar. All the muscles are ready to fight or flee, and the immune system has no business working right now, so it's suspended. And as well, you might have experienced that you cannot think very clearly or creatively at that time. So your reactions are something which is immediate and something you may repent later. So uh, the prescription is that ego should fit abilities as smartly as the lycra suit of a superhero. Just right, snug fit, and neither too big like we were saying in the cartoon earlier, because that puts you in danger of being squashed. If you're ego is too big. Somebody will help you to um, correct that delusion. But what if your perception of your powers is smaller than it really is? Why is that bad? So, for looking at that possibility, we look at the story of Samson and Delilah, very old Bible story. And this Samson was very, very strong and feared by his enemies. And as a child, he was made to believe that his strength lay in his hair. So his enemies sent him a seductress to honey trap him. Her name was Delilah. And through the dalliance, she managed to get out the secret that he believes that his strength is in his hair. So what happens? She cuts his hair. And when she cuts his hair, he believes that he has lost all his strength. So his enemies come in. The first thing they do is they gouge out his eyes. And, that's a metaphorical way of saying that when you're feeling low, you cannot see reason. And they tied him to the millstone. And that millstone was huge. It's so huge it can't fit in this picture. And the whole, for years, he was just pulling the stone round and round. And because he was blind, he could not even know that it required great strength to pull this stone. So eventually, one day, they brought him to the temple and tied him to the pillars to to celebrate that. Well, see, we have Samson as a slave, the strongest man in the world, and he's our slave. And they, all his ideologies and uh, faith, they were ridiculing and laughing at. And because of being so angry about all this, Samson just uh, pulls at the chains that have uh, tied him to the pillars, and the whole temple comes crashing down on the whole community, including Samson, of course, which is a tragedy. But the story is told because of uh, the subject of belief in your own powers. And if we take ego at the workplace, you know, we have teamwork, which is which can be affected because there's too much ego hanging all around. The workplace seems to feel like an unsafe place because everybody's ego is out of balance. So we don't trust, we can't respect. We generally don't respect somebody who's delusional, and relationships are breaking, and there is, somebody who's very talented but will not allow his talent to be used by the team because he doesn't feel safe. And that way we lose clients, we lose market share. So actually this concept of ego is extremely important in all organizations, because if the organization uses ego as an asset, understands ego and use it as a driving force, it uses ego as a construct to build confidence, to command respect, maintain quality and character. And when suppose you go to work without ego, you will be exploited. So this is something that is protective, and it builds beautiful teams, builds develops a lot of loyalty, makes the place a great place to work and grow. And ego is embedded in the way we lead, the way we manage, think, talk, everything. So it's really something that you cannot take away from anybody. So how do I know that my ego is not in balance? How do I know? Because the more senior you get, the more people will be too afraid to come and tell you what they feel about your ego. So we need to educate ourselves about the early warning signs of imbalance. So if I find that people are being comparative, or I am being comparative, or I am being competitive, being defensive, tending to show off, or trying to please. Now, these are the four categories of behaviors which give you signals that somebody's ego is not in balance. And just imagine if you're competing within the team, what's going to happen? We are supposed to compete team against team, but quite often we are competing inside the team. And that's going to be disastrous. What about comparing? See, everybody is unique. Comparing is not only unkind, it's stupid. It's a waste of time. So we say, stop comparing yourself to others. You're awesome, me awesome too. Defensiveness, there is, you find that there's a atmosphere of defensiveness in the organization. People are actually getting exhausted because they're hyper vigilant. So this is one of the reasons for burnout. And then we are coming to uh, how smart I am. How smart I am. Knowing how smart I am, is that good or is it bad? That's the next poll question for you. So the
Okay, we
polling
have
is
put that. Yeah, we have put that question on. Let's see the responses as we move forward, and request all of you to type in your responses on this particular poll question. Uh, Knowing how
I have
smart I am, is that good or bad?
I
And
have a few bads.
yeah, on 5% says it's bad. 95% says say it's good.
Okay,
Uh,
so we're coming to the topic of just being very proud of how smart I am, and quite often we'll find that uh, people are showing off about how brilliant they are. Now within the team, if I tend to show off about how brilliant I am, then the the teamwork, which is actually supposed to all work together and build a collective wisdom, that gets shattered. So in case we have a very smart team member and he's willing to share his smartness, he adds value, collaborates, and achieves. The whole team achieves. But if somebody is showing off and that is dazzling everybody else, either that somebody can't bear to look or somebody is enamored by that smartness. So what happens is that the dynamics, they become toxic and the whole team achieves much less. And what this is a question which is not going to be polled, but I do want you to just introspect and answer this if you'd like in the chat window, that what if your idea is rejected? Like we're brainstorming and everybody comes with an idea and your idea is rejected. Does that hurt? What say? So if we just see what I'm feeling within myself, I'm probably confused between, was my idea rejected or was I rejected? So there's a confusion there between idea and identity. There could be an anger felt every time somebody doesn't agree with me. And then I have to be right. I have to prove I was right. Does this happen to anybody we know? Manas, do we have any answers?
Whether the idea is rejected and that hurts.
Yeah, like, does somebody feel angry if team members don't
Yeah,
agree? Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
many times. Yes, yes, of course.
and then there are, situations where probably you are the boss and you find everybody's agreeing with you all the time
Somebody
because
says, Savishta says, doesn't hurt,
Mhm.
but it disheartens.
Disheartens. Yeah.
Yes.
So there is some emotion going
Priti
on
says,
there.
yes, it hurts. Dipriya says, yes, it hurts.
It
Satyaki
hurts.
says,
Yeah.
yes, sometimes.
So you see that there is some impact happening on that ego boundary because hurt is happening. And you could maybe take some inputs and hear people say, oh, he's Mr. Know-it-all, or because roll their eyes at you, or they could be saying you never listen. That's a complaint. And I mean, that's more at home, I guess. And there is a resentment that it's always your way or the highway. So these are the usual things, but actually they are all symptoms of this syndrome called need to be right syndrome.
Mm.
Then there is a problem when people can't say no.
You
Again, this question has not been polled. Are you burning out because you can't say no when you really want to say no? Then perhaps you are a people pleaser, and you always have this problem of what if I say no? What will people think? Will they still be my friends? Will they still like me? Will they get mad? Will they ignore me after that? So that is a big thing because people pleasing, or otherwise called seeking, acceptance seeking, it makes life very difficult because actually these people are experiencing low self-esteem, and they are uh, self-esteem is a great important emotional need, and because they are probably receiving that self-esteem need, fulfillment of that need by getting approval of others. Now what happens in that case is that getting approval of others becomes my dominant motive in life. I do everything because I want the approval of others, and the power of maintaining my self-image is being handed over to other people. Now once I've done that, I feel even more helpless and even more uh, desperate actually. So somebody who's a people pleaser eventually becomes a desperate kind of person. So in order to be genuine, which is a really hard thing to do, um, I have to project what I really am, and that will give me acceptance of who I really am. That gives me genuine confidence. Now, this is purely theoretical. We still don't know how to do this. We are coming to that. And about relationships, there's this quote from Malcolm Smith. Malcolm and Smith, they've written a book together called Egonomics, that there is a remarkable similarity in what makes a marriage work and what makes business relationships work. So we can, deal with the two together. So now we are coming to ego balancing factors, because now we've seen the warning signs, and we have uh, this diagram shows us very simply only 3 points. One is curiosity, humility, and veracity. And balance can make up for a lot of deficiencies. Like in this picture, you can see the tractor with only 3 wheels, but because they've loaded up one side, they're actually able to function. So we come to another poll question, um, because we really have to move very fast. We're already halfway through the session. Um, Assuming and stereotyping is a human habit. I'm presuming that you agree with me. And what does it do? It causes bias. It makes it easy to arrive at conclusions, both A and B, or neither A or B. Have we
so
opened this?
yeah, we have opened the poll, and the maximum which is coming in the third option. So far, it almost like 58% say people say that both A and B, and then it's now balancing. The first one is now it is almost like first one is on a real time basis. First response is coming to the highest as 50%. So
Actually,
it's mostly
it's
about
100.
A and C, mostly about A and C. So this is how we are getting.
No, that is not an option.
Uh,
The
no,
option is
it's either
no. Okay.
A is we are getting at right now it has come to
Causes bias.
42%.
Yeah,
B is 8%. C is 47%, and D is 0.
great. Perfect answers. Okay, so actually the correct answer is both A and B, which is C in this case. C in the numbering.
C in the
That's
number.
the
Okay.
correct answer. Huh? Okay. So what happens when we make assumptions? We actually uh, can do our thinking much faster. And human intelligence is very lazy. So we like to do things fast and get it done with. And stereotyping happens. And uh, this happens because human intelligence design is a predictive design. And stereotyping makes things faster. But because we're stereotyping, hence we label as well. So um, the question which I'm going to ask you is uh, not a cold question, but how do you feel when someone puts you in a box? Like there are numerous boxes and somebody has put you in one of these boxes. So how do you feel? Do you feel insulted, disrespected, slighted, or something like that? Something similar.
Generally, if I can come in, generally we approach it like this way only that the moment we see someone new, a new person, we try to judge. And
Hmm.
from our past experience, we try to put that person in particular category. Okay, this person belongs to this geography or this culture. So my
Hmm.
experience, I try to put in that person into that particular category.
Yeah,
So that generally happens.
that all of us do it. And you used a very interesting word, judge. So probably in another session, we will do the whole session on that inner judge. But right now, we have to you know keep it short. So
So
you're
I
putting.
just read out some of the responses that I have received. Dr. Gunjan Dhawan says,
Yeah.
I hate it. And Neeta says, depends. Am I trying to make an impression? And then Priyadarshini says, disrespected. Elena says, depends if the box matches my own perception of myself or
Mhm.
not. Satviki says, slighted. And these are the responses that we have, got so far.
Mm. So I want to just ask Elena to come back to me with that in the Q&A if she's still around,
Yeah,
because
she's there.
yeah, so I want to talk about that a little more.
Okay.
So what can I do about this fact that because of my stereotyping people and putting them into boxes, they are feeling slighted and they are feeling disrespected and they are feeling probably restricted. So we can start correcting this by giving some respect. Now comes, how do you give respect? You know, ego also gets in the way of listening. Ego gets in the way of many things. It gets in the way of love. It gets in the way of listening. Spoils relationships. So because we do not have enough time, we will not take up listening. But listening is a skill which we can learn and practice. And here is a quote which says, one of the most sincere forms of respect is actually listening to what another has to say. So, instead of presuming things about people, let us start listening, because there is some respect uh, transferred out there. Here is another question which we are polling. Does asking questions mean that I am curious?
So we'll get into that question. Question number 4. Does asking question means that I'm curious, true or false? So let's see the results, how we respond to it. And
We got
majority of people say it's true. 82%, 84%, 85%, or rather, it's almost like 90% say that it is true, and 10% say it is false.
okay.
Asking question means that I am curious is actually true, and some say, very few people, 10%, 10 to 11%, they say that it is false.
So what? Let's ask Manas about his experience. Let's say in conducting seminars.
Okay.
Like I can't hear your questions, but there are people who ask a lot of questions in seminars.
So,
So are they?
I'll let me just put my perspective to it. Many a
Yeah.
times it is like at the seminars or the conferences, it is trying to project myself. Yes, I am also, I have a view in this particular subject, and let this be known in the crowd, and try to market myself. I'm looking at it from a different perspective altogether. And also at times trying to put questions in a manner, we go at length saying many things, and then try to put question in a manner that, yes, of course, instead of saying and putting up a question, I am actually putting up what I wanted to say. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not really a question, but kind of a statement that I made.
Yeah, so I'm sure you all have experiences like that, and mm, uh, the answer is actually neither true or false, because 40% of questions are really statements in disguise. That's what Manas was
Oh,
saying, and 40% are judgments in disguise. Okay, so this is, it's like coming from a very superior place, and a very small percentage of inquiries are really questions. So assumptions, unwillingness to embrace different points of view, all that turns up to hamper curiosity. And we mentioned curiosity as an ego balancing factor. So
let me just come in between the responses that some of our participants they have said. Uh, Uh, some said that Neha Sharma said that it is true. Sharmishta said sometimes it is to show that I am interested. Mr. Kumar Viswas says, in other words, there may be a lot of questions at the end. Kishore Kanjilal says people ask questions to show presence also. Nilashri Ganguly says depends upon the situation. Aloka Niyogi says true. MVS Murthy says the people who ask repetitive questions in seminars shield to be should be shown the door. So so
uh, somebody had a
right.
bad experience. Okay, so coming to the next point, ego balancing factor one is we're going to talk about humility, and just to start the topic with a different name, we are going to talk about self confidence in relation to task. And if that confidence is too low, then the task seems overwhelming, that we hesitate to take up the task and might land up being ineffective altogether. And there is a chance that my confidence in relation to the task is very high. And so what happens is the task seems too easy, and there's inadequate preparation and gathering of resources. We are bound to make mistakes when we are overconfident and give a low quality output, quite possibly. Not always, but it's possible. So the question we are asking is, can overconfidence make me feel insecure? Now that's a different take altogether. overconfidence, can it make me feel insecure? Or, as when I was discussing this with somebody else, they're saying that, well, it actually comes from a place of insecureness. So, what do you say?
So
Yes,
we, yeah.
yes,
So yes, majority is 85%. Wow, it's changing on
it's
a real
changing.
time basis. 70% say yes, or 65%, 66, 33%. This is how it is happening. 68% says yes. Will request all of you to put your poll responses, and it generally is around 70% say yes and 30% say no.
Yeah, I'm really finding these polls very interesting. I don't know if you are, but why it's interesting, we can take up perhaps when we're through with the content. Okay, so here is somebody who's looking very clumsy because he's constantly swinging between self-doubt and overconfidence. Now, what we want to achieve is a point of balance. And let's see, on one end of this spectrum, we have a person with very low confidence and low self-esteem. And they have a tendency to say, I'm a loser, I will surely fail, and I am like this only, so I don't have any ambition to improve myself. So ambition equals to zero at this end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum, we have people who are so confident that of course I will succeed. And when it comes to, do you want to improve, you say, what do you mean, I'm already the best? I'm already the best, so do I want to improve? No, I'm already the best. So I'm overconfident, I'm arrogant at this end of the spectrum. Now what is happening, you see the big magnets on each side. These two ends of the spectrum are very comfortable. There's one side is a comfort zone of, oh, I can't improve, I'm like this only. And the other end is, I'm already the best, I'm the greatest, so nothing for me to do. Whereas somebody who's in the middle, who's engaged, curious, wanting to learn, is growing, is alert and dynamic, this person achieves what is called realistic confidence. That confidence is commensurate with his abilities. So this kind of a person is achieved balance between arrogance and self-doubt. And as you can see, this person is actually looking graceful, not as clumsy as the other guy who was constantly swinging from seesawing between self-doubt and arrogance. So this is actually a point of grace. It is not a static point. He is alert, he is dynamic, but he is not using very much energy once he has gotten here. So you
We
see,
received somebody writing, Priyadarshini said,
yeah,
Priyadarshini Ghosh said, I'm a performer and I'm still shaky before I go on stage. So
mhm.
overconfidence is something that I do not adhere to. Anamika says overconfidence needs to be understood.
Yeah, so we've already given it that name over, which is already suggestive of being out of proportion with the real ability. So confidence is something, and overconfidence is the delusional one. So humility brings tranquility and grace. That is what we saw when the person had achieved balance. And so what happens at the balanced state is that the balanced confidence plus willpower plus ambition, because we are constantly learning and growing, so there is achievement and continuous growth. So do humility and curiosity. make it easier for me to find courage. Here we have touched on the word courage. Again, a topic for a whole session, but we'll just touch upon it because we are finding that balancing ego requires courage. So, do humility and curiosity make it easier for me to find courage? I have,
We have started getting responses,
I
and
have,
88% said yes. 90% and 9%. This is the kind of distribution that we have. Majority, they say
majority say
yes.
yes. Okay. Uh, so there is one more ego balancing factor. We have been through curiosity, we've been through humility. Now there is veracity. And what it means is a habitual pursuit of truth. And truth meaning the whole truth, that which includes the brutal facts and the inconvenient truth. So, it actually takes courage uh, to uncover uncomfortable truths. So there is stuff that's hard to hear, there is stuff that's hard to say, and there is a lot of it is the desirable truth. Everybody wants to hear that part. So the pursuit of whole truth keeps us close to reality. And being close to reality is what we want in the ego also, as close to the real thing. And truth includes truth about knowing about myself. So to know about myself, what do I have to do? I have to receive feedback, true feedback. So that brings me to the story of what is it, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And you remember there was a stepmother, the queen, and she was very beautiful and she was very intelligent. So she had this magic mirror hidden away in the dungeon, and the magic mirror always told the truth, the brutal truth. Yes, and the really the queen was beautiful. So she would come and ask, when you're looking for the truth, what matters is the question you ask. So she would ask, who is the most beautiful person in this land? And because she was the most beautiful, the mirror would say, you are the most fairest, my queen. Now, she would ask this every day because there was some amount of insecurity there, I'm sure. So she would ask this every day. And one day, it happened to be Snow White's 16th birthday. When the mirror answers, Snow White is the most beautiful in the land. Now, what happens? The whole story starts there, right? You can see her expression. She's not happy. So, to know that you are second best, how does that feel? So,
It's terrible.
and what would you do? That is an introspective question. You have to ask only yourself and tell only yourself that what would you do if you found out you were second best? So, one of the options is you smash the mirror. A lot of people do that. They say, Arey, who are you to tell me? And just look at yourself, so that way. But this is a very intelligent queen. She does not smash the mirror. In case you have a magic mirror, somebody who tells you the very truth about you, then keep that person safe and close to you. So that's what the queen does. She does not damage the mirror, but what she does is she poisons the competition. So, of course, that depends on your value system. What would you do if you found out you were second best? You could become defensive. You could say, "Oh, lockdown is on and the salon is not open. So, what can I do? My eyebrows are not done." And all. So, there's a lot of excuses built up as to why you're not the most beautiful today. Or you could change location. meaning that you can go and enter a beauty contest in another country. So that you could do. You could just change jobs or whatever. And one more option, use the information which you have received, the feedback you have received, to work on improving yourself. So, of course, that's ideal. I mean, everybody knows that that is ideal. But the point is, do we do that? So, let us practice receiving and digesting feedback because it feels very, very hurtful and painful and sad. Sometimes it makes us cry. So, digesting feedback is actually quite a process. It takes time, and I have a theory that the time it takes for you to digest the feedback, make sense out of it, decide whether to accept it or reject it, that time taken is actually proportional to the delusion which you have about your ego. So, in order to value feedback, let us start by at least saying thank you. That's the shortest message I can give you in this much time. And display empathy while giving feedback. Come on, because you know how hard it is. When you're giving feedback, you know that it's hard on the other person. So, first of all, give it in private and give that person time to digest it. So, foolish is the person who takes offense when none was intended, but more foolish is the person who takes offense when it was intended. Luckily, the uh, person who said this is unknown. And just remember that anybody can make a mistake, even you. So let us not try to play down our mistakes. Let us not avoid apologizing because apologizing won't make us any smaller. We've already made the mistake. Let's be accountable. Share what we learned because every mistake has a learning. And the human brain is made in such a way that the learning which we receive after making a mistake is indelible. We never forget that. Now, to be seen as the true you, we said veracity, the truth about myself also have to know. Do you need courage to be seen as the true you? Uh, we will take that answer at the end of this. So we come back to the Superman suit, which is the concept in the book Get the Ego Advantage. And we have understood that ego boundary should fit competence as smartly as the stretch suit of a superhero. So once you have got this fit correct, you will feel secure because nobody can puncture. And you will be efficient because it is the right size. It's not going to restrict you. You will be able to save the world. Be respected and loved for doing it and keep learning and keep growing. So here's a recap of the balancing factors. Manas, have I kept to the time? Um,
Absolutely on dot. Yeah,
that's great. I was afraid I would overshoot. And
no, that's
yeah, so listening is a skill which we can develop. Curiosity is actually a trait. It's something many people have more than others, but we can again develop it. Humility is a practice. It is a dynamic practice, as we have seen, constantly balancing between self doubt and arrogance. And veracity is a pursuit, which you see in researchers. You see, we have, of course, researchers who fudge data, but um, the it is a way of life for people. So let us remember these things, and maybe we can, ask Manas to schedule something which is a little more in depth. We've gone kind of flitting over many things. And let's take the questions.
Okay. Let me just go back to the chat window again and the responses that we have received. Uh, Alka Goel said, thanks for an excellent talk. Anamika Chaturvedi said, completely agree. Everyone makes mistake. We all should accept it. Aloka Niyogi says, if one has too much of ego, then digesting is definitely a problem. Anamika one again said, I love myself so much that I accept myself as second best. Accepting and improving is the way forward. Very nice. Uh, Luka Niyogi says, if one has too much of ego, then digesting it definitely is a problem. That's done. These are the feedback that we have received so far. There is one question Elena has put, very interesting. Tried to apply each point to myself. Okay, this is just a, she marked it question, but she said that
So I'd asked you to hold one question from Elena before. I don't remember it.
yeah, if I can,
It wasn't really
get
a question, but
it was, yes. Just one second. We'll get back to you on that. Anamika, overconfidence needs to be understood. Was that so? That was the point. Let's get back.
sorry. If Elena is there, we can ask her. I don't know.
Yeah, Elena says question is matching boxes of perception. That was the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
Match.
yes, now I remember. She said that it depends on whether the box she has been put into is the one which she has chosen for herself. Now, this is something I wanted to highlight actually, that very, very insightful. Uh, if I am in the habit of stereotyping people and putting people in pigeonholes and labeling them, then that habit extends to me also. So I make a box for myself and I climb in myself very obediently. And at that, what I have done is I have restricted myself. I have to behave and act like that, commensurate with that label which I have put on myself. So I want to, you know, make make it like uh, maybe make you aware that you're probably doing yourself something that is disrespectful. We said, if I am in a box, I feel slighted, I feel disrespected. So if you have put yourself in the box, then you have done that to yourself a disfavor.
Right. We have received a question from Priti Govind. Listening sometimes can be distorted by one's thoughts. One listens what one wants to listen. How does one listen without pre-assumptions?
Yeah. So listening is always without pre-assumption, and you know, that is the actually the basis of the whole point. That if I'm listening, then I'm not assuming. I'm ready to receive what I am listening. I'm giving full attention. If I have occupied my head with an assumption, then I am only giving partial attention. And listening is actually like meditation, where you are giving 100% attention.
Aloka says very well conducted. Uh, Manas Anjana, excellent presentation. Well done. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Sarmishta said, how much humility is good? Sometimes it's a liability. So that's a question on the
Yeah.
humility part.
So So, as I was trying to point out, I did not spend enough time on it, that uh, humility less than what you are, like, if you are going to take it about competence. Okay, so that's only one of the points. Competence, it could be looks, it could be um, status. So if I am assessing that quantum as realistically as possible, that is my definition of humility. Humility means the correct fit, the snug fit. If I am assuming that I am less than what I am, that is not humility. I don't know what the name for that is, but in my definition, humility is the correct assessment, accurate assessment of self. If I have undershot or overshot, then it is not humility.
Right. There is one more question by Anamika. Anamika said, "How can we live with people with inflated egos?" Anamika Chaturvedi said.
Um, I think we have to do this. But, so, because you are now aware, and because you have, seen the warning signs, so you know which one is overshot, which one is undershooting. So you can help them out by, either making them aware or explaining to them that, like for example, being competitive or being comparative is not healthy. Then maybe we can, get more people into the fold. You can gift my book to them, or just chat about it sometimes.
Right, right, right.
There is a problem of narcissism, which is like a very, very unhealthy level of self-importance, self-absorption, and that actually needs expert handling, and perhaps the person who has to live with that person needs some special guidance, so that you'll have to take a personal coaching for that. So uh, I hope that answers your question.
There's one more point. Aloka Niyogi says, at times humility can be misinterpreted as weakness. What do you say?
Yes, it is true. We keep coming across these big, posters saying humility is not a weakness, and this is designed for people who make this mistake. Humility, again, the definition which I am uh, creating uh, is actually doesn't even look like a weakness. It's only when you say you are less than what you really are that it tends people tend to start exploiting you. So it is definitely unsafe to uh, project yourself less than you are and call it humility. You see, that is not humility. So
Okay. So we'll move to another question put by Mr. Murthy, MBS Murthy. It's a wonderful point that he has made. He says, easy to handle boss, subordinate, or wife's ego, but difficult to handle teenage child's ego. Please throw some light onto it.
yes, absolutely. We say that teenagers are entitled to be narcissistic because they're at a stage where they have to develop themselves, they have to grow to their somewhat fullest potential, and some amount of self absorption and self importance we almost give it to them. But your guidance is the most important as a parent, because in fact, I must tell you that I went into the topic of studying emotional intelligence because I wanted to be a better parent. So eventually, what happened was that I learned a lot, and by that time, my children had grown up. So kind of missed the bus. But uh, what I'm trying to say is that parenting is such an important task, which we take as if, is a non-skilled thing. It's not. Parenting requires a lot of training. Parenting and mentoring are the same. So, like you said, that if you are able to manage your subordinates in the workplace, then definitely you'll be able to, apply the same principles to a teenager. The best way to treat a child, even from when the child is 3 or 4 years old, is to treat the person like an adult. So, best of luck.
Many of them, they have expressed that thank you for it's well said. I have enjoyed thoroughly. Nilam said, Aloka said, well said. Anjana, Namika Chaturvedi said, excellent session. Thanks a million. Uh, Sheikh Sana, my team member, she says, glad to be part of this interesting session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Anjana. So I'm getting good responses, and uh, that's almost like we have come across 1 hour 15 minutes of time on air. Kumar Viswas said, thank you very much, and it's really wonderful. Sarojini Datta said, wonderfully explained. Uh, Very nice. Udayan Dasgupta said, excellent session, enjoyed it. So thank you so much, all the participants, and especially thank you, Dr. Anjana, so nicely said. Deepali Kohli said, thank you. The takeaways from this session have been excellent and insightful. Neha Sharma says, wonderful session, thank you. Elena also expressed her thanks. I learned many things. So these are the
Thank
responses that
you.
we are receiving. Thank you so much, all the participants, and thank you, Dr. Anjana. We actually have some of the offers with us. We can help you out. We have with us experts. Please feel free. You can call us. You can register with us for our counseling sessions till the time the lockdown is there. It's absolutely free. Otherwise, also we have our experts with us. We have sessions, as we said, that we will be conducting more such webinars going forward, and there are number of webinars lined up. Please do register. Thank you so much, Dr. Anjana, once again, and such a short notice. We are so happy to have you with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Manas. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being with us.